Masha was looking at the voucher the factory had given her. Why, she wondered. She could have easily spent a perfectly calm 2 weeks on her own couch, instead of having to take a bus for 2 whole hours to do it, especially since the notorious couch was now entirely at her disposal. It had been for almost 2 months now, but falling asleep on it alone still felt strange. She'd make the bed, lie down, and instinctively roll over to the left side, waiting for her husband to come out of the bathroom so he could lie down too and kiss her goodnight. She would fall asleep, freezing in a painful silence. Then at night, she'd drink tea for a long time and just fall asleep curled up in the armchair. In the morning, her back and neck would ache, but most of all, her heart hurt. First, her husband started staying late at work. Then he would disappear to go fishing with his old school friend, Kolya. Masha believed him until she ran into Kolya on the street. "Fishing?" He was astonished. "Manya, I haven't seen your Andre in 6 months." There was a difficult conversation with her husband. And another woman. "Well, since everything is out in the open, let's part ways like civilized people, without any scandals." In the evening, Masha again looked around her apartment with a heavy heart, dropped her bag on the hallway stand, and went to wash her hands. It was there, at the sink, that she looked at herself for the first time in a while, and was frightened. A woman with a lifeless look in her eyes and dull, as if dusted over hair. How old was this woman? 30? 60? It was no wonder they gave her a voucher. At least it was for a health resort and not a morgue. She stood there for a long time, forgetting about the water running into the sink. Then she finally closed the tap and went to pack her things. She didn't put much thought into the health resort itself, but she did pack a corkscrew, a bottle of wine, and a box of chocolates to treat her nerves. Having boarded the cranky, wheezing bus at the bus station, which was puffing out gray clouds of smoke, she listened to the mumbling of the radio in her headphones and arrived at her destination. Pine Forest was proudly emblazoned on the facade. The black, cast-iron gates, painted with silvery paint, clung to it forlornly. She got her key at the front desk. The receptionist looked as if she had been standing there since the health resort was built. "Room for 2 with amenities. You'll have a roommate, Zoya Nikotikna. Are there no single rooms?" Masha asked quietly. "I'll pay extra." "Not allowed." The woman cut her off. "What did you come here for? To relax? You can relax in half an hour tomorrow." "And where is that?" "In the treatment building." "Go on, woman. Don't distract me from my work." As Masha was leaving, she saw the receptionist reach for a paperback book with a picture of an embracing couple on the cover. Masha sighed softly and headed for her room, picking up her suitcase, which felt like a lead weight. The door was ajar, and she heard quiet, incomprehensible muttering that stopped as soon as she appeared. "Hello," Masha tried to smile. "I'm your new roommate. My name is Maria, Masha for short. And you're Zoya Nikotikna, right?" "Hi. You can just call me Zoya." Her new friend winked at her playfully. "I was ordered to be cheerful with you. Don't mind me, dear. It's okay if I use you?" "No." Masha breathed out, dumbfounded, unaccustomed to such cheerfulness. "I asked for a separate room, but they said it wasn't allowed. A very convincing lady, yes, and she has some kind of job there." "A job?" "That's her job description. Reading romance novels with a happy ending, not with a cliffhanger." "Oh, you don't know her well enough. I used to work here as a senior maid, and she was my subordinate. So I married a military man, and we met here, actually. He was in the neighboring health resort after hospital rehabilitation. He was sent to such a remote place that even wolves get lost there. So I followed my husband to twist the tails of those wolves and bears. And Gaka, she stayed here, but not for long. As soon as the USA ended, she was kicked out of her job. Since then, she's been sitting in stagnation and spitting venom. What brought you to our swamp? To get better. The factory gave me a 2-week voucher. I see. And I had a stroke. My husband took off years ago. It's a nerve-wracking job, but it spared me for now, she said, pointing to the massive black cane next to her bed. And only then did Masha finally notice Zoya's gray hair, artfully dyed with purple and pink, the wrinkles around her eyes, and a slight asymmetry in her face. Yes, you understood correctly, Zoya said. That's why I'm talking so much, to exercise my speech. But you, put your suitcase down. It's time for breakfast. If we're lucky, there will be a wonderful cottage cheese casserole today. The dining room was in the next building. Masha had prepared to walk slowly along the covered walkway that connected all the buildings. So when they ran to the dietitian's office, Masha only wanted to fall into the nearest chair and catch her breath. But Zoya was relentless. Lena, good morning. Oh, what a nice hairpin you have. And this, Masha, is Galia's doing. She decided to cheer me up by putting a girl in with me, so you should seat us next to each other. See how sad the girl is? She needs a man to get a grip on her. And in the evening, we'll go to the dance, and then we'll find out. Zoya laughed. Well, we're off. Run, run. Enjoy your breakfast. Breakfast was indeed unexpectedly delicious and gave Masha a short break. Masha was used to silence and a measured life, but the hurricane named Zoya didn't irritate her. On the contrary, it amused her. A doctor with a militant mustache looked into Masha's health card and then at her, sitting stiffly on the edge of the chair. Masha, you have excellent health. So, besides the wellness procedures, there's nothing else to suggest. You should walk and get some fresh air. Eat our oxygen cocktails. Drink our herbal teas. Thank you. What about something stronger? No. You can go for massages and mud wraps. He made a note. And baths, those are very good. And I recommend our beauty center. Now, go to the registrar on the first floor of the treatment building. Give her my simple notes, and she'll tell you everything. I'm sorry, but we do things the old-fashioned way here, without computers. That's okay. Masha smiled weakly. I understand. She was liking this health resort, which seemed to be stuck in the Soviet era more and more. It reminded her of her childhood when she and her parents, when she was very small, also went to a similar health resort in their hometown. The first couple of days for Masha passed in a drowsy stupor. She obediently went to the procedures, ate in the dining room while listening to the chatter of the eternal optimist Zoya, and read from the local library about treacherous traders, but she never got to the happy ending. It was quiet and empty in the pine forest. Masha walked along the path, crunching on pine cones and fallen needles. Zoya was also silent, heavily thudding her cane into the ground with each step until they came to a steep cliff. Let's sit down, Zoya said, pointing to a roughly hewn bench. You know, I used to run here often to cry. Fight with a boyfriend or a spat with friends. I had a difficult and uncooperative character. Oh, I made so many mistakes then. And you, what grief do you have, Mashenka? Share. He went to another woman, Masha whispered. She nodded frantically. A cold, slimy lump formed in her throat again. Did he say something awful to you on the way out? He just said he was leaving. That he already. Masha quietly sobbed. trying to hold back the tears as she always did. "Cry, my dear. I'll go for a walk, and you can cry. There's no one here but me, an old woman, and the forest with the river. In any situation, one of the freedoms we must remember is the freedom to cry," one wise person said. "I would only add that water always washes away all the bad things. It will dissolve it and carry it away without a trace." And for the first time since her husband left, Masha broke down in tears. At first, she was timid and almost silent, looking at the ground at her worn sneakers, and then, unexpectedly for herself, she sobbed out loud, burying her face in Zoya's dry, bony shoulder while Zoya continued to comfort her by stroking her back. The tears flowed and flowed for so long that Masha thought there was a bottomless, bitter sea of salt inside her. But they, too, finally stopped, leaving behind fatigue and a ringing emptiness. "Well, now that you've gotten it all out, that's what we came here for. Are you going to get your husband back? I don't want to see him. And that's right. If he left, he wasn't the one for you. Now, my dear, let's get you back to life. Zoya, what life is there after 40? Life begins at 40. Go to the young women in the beauty center and you'll be a beauty. Leave all the bad stuff here. Let the wind blow it away. Let's go to dinner." The evening forest was bright and ringing. Somewhere a bird was whistling and a woodpecker was tapping. Masha seemed to be looking around for the first time, trying to find it at the top of a tree, or smiling as she looked at a flock of small birds having a noisy fight in one of the bushes. Through the branches of the pines high above, the setting sun, lying on the path, was glowing. "I didn't notice it before," she smiled, "because my heart was heavy, Mashenka." Dinner seemed unusually tasty to Masha. She even went for seconds and then drank herbal tea with a bun, studying the walls of the dining room. On one of them, done in a small mosaic, barefoot girls in scarves were generously sowing golden grain from birch bark baskets onto the ground. On another, moose were in endless wheat fields. On a third, tractors and trucks, loaded with freshly cut ears of grain, were important. And on the fourth, a rich table was spread with a large loaf of bread in the center and various pretzels and bagels. After dinner, there was usually an entertainment program, dancing, songs with a guitar or an accordion, or even some games and charades. Zoya, of course, suggested every time that she go with her, but Masha didn't want to. So today she refused, and after seeing Zoya off, she pulled the curtains, lay down, covered her head with a blanket, and unexpectedly fell into a deep sleep without any dreams. In the morning, the restless Zoya pulled her out for morning exercises on the summer sports ground, and Masha happily squatted and waved her arms, getting her blood and bad mood going. At breakfast, she ate both oatmeal with apple slices and the cottage cheese casserole that Zoya had so advertised, and yesterday's buns. Life was slowly returning to her. After breakfast, everyone went to the treatment building for procedures, and from there to lunch. After lunch, it was time for universal bliss and rest. Some lay in front of the TV in their rooms, some played checkers or backgammon in the lobby, and some, including Zoya, watched movies in the local cinema. Today, for example, they were showing The Girls. Masha decided to go for a walk. She took a bottle of water with her, a couple of apples, and a handful of pine nuts for the squirrels, and set off. Somewhere up in the pines, woodpeckers were tapping again and squirrels were scurrying about. Some of them were timid and ran away as Masha approached, while others would climb right onto her hand and sit there, cracking nuts. Masha wasn't stingy. They even split an apple in half. The well-worn paths had long since ended, leaving her alone with nature, but Masha kept walking and walking until she ran into a completely rusted chain-link fence. She hurt herself on its edges and moved along it until she reached the main entrance gate. However, as soon as she pushed it lightly, one of the gates crashed to the ground, almost crushing her. A massive, time-grade concrete stele with a faded inscription was visible. And between the tiles at the main entrance, not only grass, but also young pine trees were growing. And there was an unpleasant silence here, as if time itself had left this place along with the departed people. Masha sat down on a bench that was miraculously preserved and sat there motionless and thoughtless, enjoying the peace. She looked at her watch and rushed to dinner, promising herself to return tomorrow. As she hurried along the alley leading to the dining room, she noticed out of the corner of her eye that one of the lanterns behind her had suddenly flared up and burned out. It was probably a power surge. Zoya waved to her from the table. "Where have you been, Masha? Sit down, eat quickly. After dinner, we're having karaoke today. We'll sing." Immediately, her husband's voice sounded in her head. "Manya, your singing would only scare away crows. You sing like a steam engine." She immediately lost the desire to sing, and to eat, and to live. "Thanks, I'd rather read a book in my room." "That library one? The flame of true love? You should find that love in reality. Love isn't a book." Zoya laughed affectionately. After karaoke, they promised more dancing. "Boys from the military health resort will come, and from the village too." Masha smiled wryly, picking at a baked fish with vegetables with her fork. The boys were well over 60, but this didn't bother the eternal optimist Zoya. She was almost certain that despite her bad leg and the monstrous-looking four-legged cane, she would still go to the disco and dance there. Zoya did manage to drag her to the dance, but the thumping music and the flashing multicolored lights were more annoying than relaxing. So, taking advantage of the fact that her friend had been whisked away for a dance by an elderly but cheerful suitor, Masha slipped outside. There, she found a young maid from the village. "Tired too?" she smiled, taking out a lighter. "What one?" "No thanks. And I wouldn't recommend it to you either. It's a habit." She shrugged. "Someday, when I want a baby, I'll quit. Just don't tell Lina Fyodorovna on me, okay? She'll scold me." "I won't," Masha smiled. "Tell me something instead. What's that building in the forest?" "That's the old health resort. We used to love to hang out there as teenagers until Misha, drunk, fell from there to his death. The guys told me that it was as if someone pushed him, although officially it was ruled a simple accident. My grandmother used to scold us, saying the place was cursed. She even told me something, that a spirit of the forest lives there or some other chupacabra. For chupacabra stuff, you should ask Grandma Katia. She works as a cleaner in the treatment building." The girl put out her cigarette and ran back inside. Masha smiled after her. To be her age. She looked thoughtfully towards the forest. She had loved ghost stories since childhood. At breakfast the next morning, Zoya was still groaning when she walked, but her eyes were sparkling. "We had a great time, and my suitor was wonderful, and we're going for a walk today, and anyway, Masha, come with us. And Volodya will bring his friend." "No thanks." She shook her head in response. "I've had enough men for the rest of my life." "Don't say never." Her friend laughed and hurried away. "Excuse me," she unexpectedly said to the nurse. "Does the cleaner Katerina? I unfortunately don't know her patronymic work today." "Grandma Katia?" "No, she's off today. She'll be here the day after tomorrow." "Why?" Did something happen? No, nothing. I was just wondering. At lunch, Zoya, as always, smiled cheerfully and warmly at her. I used to love checkers as a kid. Why? They're trying to organize a tournament between the health resorts. They're looking for volunteers. They also want to organize a swimming competition. Let's sign up. Let's. She pulled a beet salad with herring towards her. I love to swim. Hooray! Zoya rejoiced. By the way, after dinner, there's going to be a poetry club meeting. Thanks. How was your walk with your suitor? Wonderful. Her friend giggled and unexpectedly said, You know, I walked in the forest and fed the squirrels. It was so wonderful, I didn't even expect it. For some reason, she didn't want to talk about the old health resort. There are some beautiful places here. There's even a lover's lake somewhere in the forest, and there's a legend that if you give its water to your beloved to drink, he'll sit on the throne for a day because of an upset stomach. Masha continued in the same tone. Oh, stop it. Zoya laughed. Okay, I gotta run. That night, Masha dreamed of the peace and silence of the abandoned health resort. So the next day, after her procedures and lunch, she hurried there, barely fending off Zoya, who wanted to keep her company. She didn't want to share the mystical silence of the health resort with anyone. The inscription, Love is social music, was scrawled on the wall. A piece of cable dangled from a tree in the wind, and after the letter A, a long, uneven line was drawn downward, hinting that the music was short and minor. Nonsense and foolishness, Masha grumbled, remembering her ex-husband. There is no love or happiness. A small stone bowl with a time-worn fish balancing on its tail was visible in front of a cat. It had once been a fountain, but now, covered with leaves and filled with dirt, it was a sad sight. Broken lantern globes completed the picture. Masha only came to her senses in the evening and rushed to the exit. But at the gate, she was met by an unnatural, silent, expectant presence hidden between the buildings. I'll come tomorrow. You will wait, won't you? In response, a warm wind and evening dampness blew on her face. A quiet confidence blossomed in her soul that she would be welcome here. Masha smiled and hurried to dinner. She barely noticed another lantern burn out behind her. Masha, come here. Zoya waved to her. The cane next to her table shook and a second later fell into the aisle between the tables. If only I had that much energy. Masha sighed to herself, rubbing her left eye, which had suddenly begun to sting, and moved towards her friend. A little girl about 5 years old passed her, happily holding a plate with cut pieces of watermelon in her hands. She's going to break it. And indeed, a moment later, the pieces of watermelon flew into the air, and the girl whimpered as the dishes broke with a loud clang on the tiled floor. She immediately burst into tears. Yulia, you'll hurt yourself. Zoya stretched out her hands. And I'm a klutz, I didn't see. Forgive me. She looked guiltily at the girl's mother, who was approaching them. You should watch your things, you old cow. The mother snapped back, picking up her child. You should have been the one to fall instead. I hope you do, Masha thought, wiping another tear from her eye, and then, continuing aloud, she said, comforting her distraught friend. So Yanka, don't be upset. You're not the one who fell. You yourself said that you have more than enough suitors. After dinner, let's. She was interrupted by a crash and a painful groan behind her. The rude mother, having clumsily slipped on a watermelon rind, fell to the floor and was now holding her badly twisted ankle. Masha looked at her with such satisfaction that her stinging eye almost stopped hurting. A bottle of semi-sweet red wine still managed to lift their spirits at the end of the evening. She and Zoya laughed so hard that their unhappy neighbors even pounded on the wall. But the morning began with a problem. It felt like something was stuck in her left eye, a burning pain. Masha almost felt her way to the dining room and then, not without Zoya's help, to the doctor. "A shard of glass, my dear. How did you manage that?" he concluded, dropping something into an old tray and dripping a terribly stinging solution into her eye. And then he strictly warned her not to strain her eyes. No reading, no TV, no computers, or other luxuries of civilization. "Can I go for a walk?" Masha asked timidly. "Yes, you can, but you have to wear a bandage so as not to irritate your eye. And come back the day after tomorrow to show me." "Okay," she nodded and, grabbing a bag with her swimsuit, slippers, and a towel, went for her procedures, inhalations, and the most disgusting one, a massage. "Today there will be a meeting of the poetry club." Zoya winked at her at lunch. "It's called the Book Cat. Let's go!" She was right. An entertainer was already handing out brochures, walking between the tables. On the brochures, as Masha found out, a fat cat was drawn, holding a book in its paws. "Let's go. It'll be interesting." "Okay, after dinner." "Listen, the noodle soup today is amazingly tasty. Have you tried it?" "I'll go get some right now, if you praise it so much." When she returned to the table, Masha winced. Her eye was stinging again. Lifting the bandage, she wiped it with a handkerchief and glanced at the serving table with the soups. The girl standing there unexpectedly swayed, having awkwardly stepped on a chip in the tile with her heel. She waved her arms, trying to keep her balance, and finally dropped the pot with a crash, splashing the people standing nearby. "What terrible luck!" Zoya shook her head, as if something was wrong with the whole place. "I heard that something like that started at the neighboring health resort, which is why it closed down. Some chupacabra. You silly villagers." Zoya laughed loudly. "The funding ran out, that's why it closed. Let's go and get dressed up and recite some poems." "Chupacabra, I can't stop laughing." The club meeting, which took place in the dance hall, reminded Masha of an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. The atmosphere was only livened up by a shaky, creaky table in the corner with cheap cookies, crackers, and a pot-bellied samovar, and a huge cat named Batten, the club's mascot and the favorite of the entire health resort, who was dozing nearby. Masha didn't want to recite poems, and her eyes still hurt, but she enjoyed listening to the poems of both classics, Akhmatova, Burns, Pasternak, and William Blake, and modern poets like Lovitz. "Let's have some tea during the break," Zoya whispered quietly. "Okay." Moving the bandage, Masha followed with her one good eye, making sure she didn't fall. However, the table remained untouched. But a banner hanging from the ceiling with a picture of a waltzing couple suddenly fell with a rustle, covering the table and half of the people. Batten, who was dozing on one of the chairs, fluffed up his fur and shot onto the dance floor with a frightened meow. A commotion, of course, broke out. An elderly man with a mustache, a local handyman, grumbled for a long time that everything was falling apart and breaking down lately, as if someone really had brought some evil. "Oh, I might as well start believing in evil spirits," Zoya sighed before bed. "Oh well, we'll get some sleep now, and in the morning, everything will be better." Masha snorted, dropping medication into her sore eye and blinking quickly and often, so that the red fire alarm light danced and blurred into a vague blob. "I jinxed it," Masha muttered sleepily, when they were woken up in the middle of the night by the fire alarm, causing a general panic. The fire was a false alarm, but the victims, with their dull, sleepy eyes, got stuck in the doors, pushed each other, got bruises and bumps, and several people even managed to get hurt and burned. But at breakfast, the health resort was buzzing, discussing the night's adventures, and a group of particularly active old women were writing a collective complaint to the Department of Health, the city administration, and for some reason, the gas company. Nothing better to do, thought Masha, looking at a small white spot on her eye that looked like a cloud. Maybe you should go to the city? It must hurt, Mashenka? Zoya asked sympathetically. You know, it doesn't hurt at all. It just itches a little, and when I lift the bandage, it feels even better, as if I bathed in a healing spring. And you've gotten prettier lately. A blush has appeared on your cheeks, and you look younger. You're just saying that, she laughed in response. Okay, should we go to the treatment building? Maybe the local muds are truly miraculous, even if they stink like a beast. When Masha was leaving the balneotherapy wing, she came face to face with an older woman with a mop and a bucket in her hand. Excuse me, are you Katya? Ekaterina Andreevna? The woman nodded. Yes, what is it? I was told that you know an interesting legend about the neighboring health resort, and I'm collecting them. Could you share? I'll even pay you. She showed the corner of a $500 bill. Let's go to the back stairs then. They won't let us talk here. Ira, get out of the way. A dark-haired, skinny girl stuck her head out from behind the door. I'll be gone for half an hour. If anyone asks, tell them I went to the storage room for powder. Don't cause trouble, okay? The girl's smile flashed, and she was gone again. Ekaterina Andreevna nodded, and with the importance of a flagship of the royal fleet, floated down the corridor, clanking her bucket. Masha followed her. It's a bad place, cursed, Grandma Katya muttered, chewing her lips when they stopped by the dirty windowsill. My great-grandmother told me that once people lived here and worshipped an idol, offering sacrifices, and then they all disappeared. One year was a bad one. The livestock died, and there was a famine. So the people decided to offer a human sacrifice to appease their gods. But they felt bad about sacrificing their own relatives, so they decided on a vile thing, to find an orphan girl to put under the sharp knife. She died, but her soul, corrupted by the betrayal, remained here, restless, tied to the place of her death. And it seems she still wanders, searching for a host. She wants to break free, and on whomever her wicked gaze falls, misfortune and trouble befall them. There was no memory of this settlement left. People forgot the place. But in the USA, they remembered it again, to their sorrow. The locals did not want to go to the construction site, even though the pay was high for those times. The old men and women begged them not to, writing letters wherever they could, but no one listened to them. Superstition, you see. They didn't believe them, in short. They built it to their own detriment. Even when human bones and skulls were found, I remember someone, for a joke, hung a skull on a stick. Its gray braid fluttered in the wind. A terrible curse really fell upon Ruby. Accidents and troubles started happening, one after another, and so foolishly, for no reason at all. People who came to get better ended up getting hurt instead. The people started to be afraid to go to Ruby. Now only the brave ones go there to get treated. And when the USA ordered a long life, it closed completely. The Ruby is not the Ruby it used to be. But the cursed maiden was bored without sacrifices. She wanted blood and suffering. So she started to wander around the area. If someone brought something to her from the health resort, she would get attached to it, and then misfortune would begin here too. Maybe some idiot vacationer brought something back today. None of the locals go there on their own to avoid waking the evil one. You should be scared, and don't go there either. and tell everyone about it. Understand? I understand. I understand. But maybe it can be uncursed somehow? How can you uncurse a dead person? 10 years ago, some weirdos with cameras came here. They dripped wax on the fountain, burned a pile of brooms, and even slaughtered a chicken and left it. Idiots! As if it was meant to be used for soup. They called our girl necrotic, and they said that only if someone invites her to go with them and shares their pain and bitterness will she leave this place. Thank you, Masha said, offering the promised money and automatically adjusting her crooked bandage. The old woman deftly tucked the bill into her ample cleavage. I can also tell you about the drowned man from the mill. No, thank you. Oh well, then I'll go. The floors will get all dusty without me, and you white hands will get all messy. Grandma Claudia bent over for the bucket with a sigh, but the handle slipped out of its eyelets, remaining in her hand, while the bucket itself clattered and rolled down the stairs, splashing dirty water. From below, someone's indignant wail was heard. Goodbye, Masha whispered, but when she came out into the glass walkway between the buildings, she burst out laughing, remembering the bucket bouncing down the stairs. She wiped her tearing eye from the laughter and headed for dinner. While winding noodles with a proud name, Far Eastern, onto her fork, she asked Zoya, I heard today that there's a legend that the evil one lives in Ruby. And they say they use marijuana in New York too. Who told you that? Grandma Claudia. She's a cleaner, Claudia. Who? Zoya snorted. Don't listen to her. She'll tell you things. She was a fool when she was young, and with age, she's only gotten more wrinkles. Want to participate in a quiz after lunch? It's in the dance hall, and it might even have prizes. No, I'll take a walk. She put down her plate with salad and went to the serving area for potato soup, which occasionally had pieces of meat in it. After lunch, when they were getting ready for a walk, Zoya was joined by a dashing elderly gentleman with whom she planned to go to the quiz. He gallantly kissed her hand, complimented her, and, limping, walked off with her friend to the dance hall. Masha followed them with her eyes, and then, putting her bandage back on, headed for the forest. Despite the scary legend, she wanted to be in the silence of the abandoned Ruby again. The autumn forest spoiled her with warmth and the whistling of birds. Masha turned her face to the sun, warming herself and secretly hoping to get a little tan, and then, obeying an impulse, she took off the bandage. The light was sharp on her eye, which had become unaccustomed to it, but soon the pain subsided. A loudly chirping magpie scolded a red squirrel, and the squirrel, paying no attention to anyone, nimbly jumped from branch to branch, hurrying on its own little errands. Masha followed it with her eyes. The squirrel climbed a pine tree, climbed higher, and after a short flight, grabbed onto another pine tree with its claws and continued its journey. The dry branch on which it landed crunched and broke off with a noise. Unable to push off from it, the squirrel waved its paws in an attempt to grab onto something, and also flew down. Where did a piece of concrete with rebar sticking out of it come from in the middle of the forest? It just appeared there, but the squirrel fell exactly on it, and lay there, weakly twitching its paws. Blood, like granulated sugar, came from under its flattened body. Masha buried the squirrel in the pine needles. She went back to the steel and the silence. Masha sat down on the bench by the fountain, looked around the half-ruined building, and whispered, Hello! You know, they call you the evil one, but I think it's better to be the evil one than a loser or a crazy person, since I'm talking to myself. You're just a village tale, after all. In response, a moist bitterness breathed in her face. Well, what else can you call me? I didn't build a career. I didn't have children, and I won't have them now. My husband ran away and even gave me a cuckold's horns. So I perfectly understand how much pain you were in, but you at least know how to take revenge for yourself. And no wonder my husband used to call me a jinx and the empty one. I don't know how to do anything. Maybe you can grant a little wish? I would like to be strong and brave. Maybe then I'd be promoted at work." She talked for a long time, and the wind, with light touches, tickled her face. Masha smiled. "I'm unlikely to ever come back here, but I will remember you. Oh, I would like to take this place with me. Goodbye." The wind accompanied her, pushing her in the back and dancing, lifting the fallen pine needles. As she hurried to dinner, she didn't notice how the shadow clinging to her legs wavered and then completely split in two, nor did she pay attention to how the lanterns in the alley slowly went out behind her. Dinner was unusually crowded. Masha looked for Zoya, but she had apparently already eaten. There was a quiet but steady noise of voices in the hall, reminiscent of the rumble of the sea. The voices, like waves, would calm down and then rise again. "Dead just died," someone said from one side. "A clot has come loose, they say," someone else said. "Just confirmed dead." "Poor man," a woman muttered from another side. The phrases were a mess. "Oh my God! Tell me, please, what happened?" Masha asked a woman with whom she had been in the salt cave earlier that day. "Well, one of the participants in the quiz felt sick. It looks like a blood clot broke off and went straight to his heart. He died in a moment, just wheezed and fell off his chair. Oh, what a panic there was! And the woman with him almost went after him. They could barely give her a sedative to calm her down. Didn't you hear? She's your friend. You're always having dinner with her." Masha froze and ran. She flew through the walkway and up to the third floor. The door to the room was wide open. Zoya was crying quietly, like an unfairly offended child. Masha sat down on the bed next to her, awkwardly putting her hands on her shoulders, not knowing what to say. On the other side, the horned goat from the front desk plopped down, having forgotten all her grudges, either mumbling something nonsensically soothing or cursing fate and the evil one. Hugging her friend, Masha only now thought about the series of accidents and troubles that had been happening in the last few days. What if the legend wasn't just a fantasy? What if that girl really existed and still exists? And she, Masha, brought her with her? "I am so sorry, Zoya." Zoya cried all night, and in the morning, she quietly packed her things and left for the city. Masha also did not linger. The empty apartment greeted her with a dusty, gloomy silence. Masha walked through the rooms as if she were seeing them for the first time. The slightly yellowed wallpaper in the bedroom, the shirt her husband had left on the back of a chair and never picked up, and the broken doorknob he always promised to fix but never did. All those little things that made the apartment lived in and cozy, but now felt wrong and alien. Masha herself now felt wrong and dirty, like peeling paint on a damp basement wall. And underneath it, like mold, a hopeless, hungry darkness was stirring. The fight with herself was a thankless task, but she really tried not to wish ill on anyone, not even in her thoughts, and not to take off the bandage for even a moment except at home, ignoring the heavy, evil joy that rose from inside her at someone's pain or misfortune. But she was getting worse at it. A broken cup, a stalled car, or a door to an office that closed for lunch right in front of her nose. These were minor, insignificant problems. But it was with them, like breadcrumbs, that she fed the darkness that had taken root in her, appeasing it so that it would not cause greater misfortunes. And in the depths of her soul, she understood that this was only a postponement. She donated part of her not-so-large salary to an animal shelter and even tried to volunteer there, using the rest of her vacation. But when she appeared, the animals seemed to go crazy, throwing themselves against the bars of their cages, whining and howling. She felt a crust of ice slowly covering her heart and a slow, creeping indifference, leaving only one thing: hunger. Her eyes saw worse and worse, and the cloudy spot on her cornea gradually turned into a blind spot. The doctors whom she went to see in her city only shrugged and sent her to each other, as if playing ball with her. The last one, after looking through a thick folder of tests and reports, didn't even give her a minute. With an awkward movement, he spilled a full cup of hot tea on his phone and his lap. It was then, for the first time, that Masha couldn't hold back a triumphant, evil smile. She wanted more. A week later, her ex-husband appeared on her doorstep. Tilting her head, like a curious bird, she looked at him from head to toe. "Well, well, he came himself," she snorted, stepping back into the apartment, letting him into the doorway. With a businesslike look, he surveyed the apartment. "Anya is pregnant. And you always said you didn't want to babysit a screaming, pooping baby," Masha continued for him. "Even though you knew I always wanted a child. People change," he shrugged. "You see, I wanted heirs. And you?" He looked at her bandaged eye with disgust. "Maybe someone will still take care of you after the second abortion? I can't have any more children after you, and I told you that." "Well, it's even better then. Why do you need 2 whole rooms by yourself?" Her husband rejoiced. "We'll buy you a room. It's not a fair trade. Anya is having twins, and we need more space. You should understand." "I don't have to understand," Masha said, smiling without any emotion. "If your Anya needs space, you can ask for it from a stranger." He raised his eyebrows. "We'll go to the notary tomorrow. You'll sign a power of attorney for me. You understand? Don't forget your passport. And yeah, I opened an account for you. We'll go and re-register it to me. I'll even leave you some money in gratitude for keeping it, so to speak." "Well, why are you silent?" Masha listened to him and didn't see the stubble on his chin. He always took care of himself. She saw how his dull, gray eyes shone behind his glasses. She looked and couldn't understand how she could have loved this man before. But she could. She almost idolized him. "Go away," Masha heard her own cold, quiet voice, as if from the outside. "Go away, and don't come back. The apartment and the account are registered to me. I will consider them a repayment for your betrayal, but I don't want to see you anymore." "Well, well, look how you're talking. Your voice has finally appeared," her ex-husband said. "I took pity on you back then, you ugly thing. You could say I picked you up from the trash like a flea-bitten mongrel. And you're biting the hand that fed you. Don't you worry, those kinds of people get taken care of. Now get out of my apartment. I have things to do." "Oh yeah, you'll have things to do tomorrow. Listen to me, I'll be waiting for you at the notary's. If you're not there—" She slammed the door in his face. She looked in the mirror and smiled. She really had a lot to do tomorrow. Go to the bank and find out the balance on her account and re-register it for a better interest rate, change the locks on her doors, go to the hairdresser and a cosmetologist, and go shopping. So when her ex-husband called her, she was almost surprised, having forgotten about his existence in the whirlwind of her affairs. She didn't listen to his angry rant. Things were gradually getting better. She was happy with her refreshed, new haircut and the stylish, specially ordered bandages for her eye. And her ex-husband with his absence. Even a young police officer, who received a report that an illegal brothel was supposedly located here, paid the price for his persistence with a dislocated arm when he tripped on a flat surface and flew down half a flight of stairs. There was an anonymous report to her work with slanders, and even some hooligans who tried to drag her into a back alley to take her purse and accidentally knocked off her bandage. Masha, smiling contentedly, called an ambulance for them herself. One day, a quiet, pregnant girl appeared on her doorstep. Masha looked at her with an indifferent gaze. There was no anger, although this girl was nominally a vile homewrecker and actually just a naive fool. There was not even jealousy, but rather indifference, tinged with a little disgusted pity. "Did you come to ask for Andre?" "I came for the apartment," the girl said. "I heard he promised to give it to me, and I'm not leaving." She put her hand on her stomach. "Please understand, I'm not going to." "Where is Andre?" "In the car." "And where did he get a car from?" "He gave it to him," she whispered. "He needed it more." "Is that so? Well, let's go talk to this brave man." Her ex-husband's face literally twisted when he saw her walking leisurely to the car with Anya following behind her, sniffling. "Well, you immoral, shameless wretch," she greeted him. "Nothing excessive, just the truth." "Bitch," he said. "No," she shrugged. "Just tired of being nice and compliant." "Why did you come here? Or rather, why did you send your new girlfriend here? You're not here for the apartment, are you, my dear?" he said, turning to his Anya. "I saw a wonderful children's store across the street. We wanted to look for a stroller. You go and see if there's anything good, and we'll talk." No, I'm in a good mood," the girl said, but as soon as she walked away, Andre's tone instantly changed. "Give it back nicely," he hissed, "or I'll make your life hell. The apartment might even catch on fire. The wiring is old. God forbid something happens, Maria." Masha demonstratively raised her hand with her phone and pressed the record button. "I told you everything back then. You registered the apartment to me to avoid taxes, so I'll repeat, you have nothing to do with it. So you can proudly walk into your new family life with nothing, as you like to say. A fair wind at your back. But if you think of doing anything bad, I have proof of your threats." A ringing sound in her ears was the slap on her face. For a second, it even seemed to her that she had boiling water splashed on her cheek. A few passers-by turned around at her cry and then hurried on with their business. "So that's how it is," she said, holding her cheek. "So that's how it is." The shadows at her feet slowly merged into one. One, which was paler, twitched towards the bandage that had fallen on the asphalt but retreated defeated. "You're trash," Andre hissed. "What trash you are. Take it as a compliment. Now get out and take care of your car," she said, and her white eye flashed. "Goodbye, wench," her ex-husband hissed as he got into the car, but Maria didn't even turn around. She had not yet entered the yard when a screech of tires and car horns sounded behind her. In the movies, cars exploded, flared up, and burned spectacularly and fiercely. In reality, the sight was much weaker. The flame quickly writhed under the hood, and a cloud of gray smoke enveloped the car. The wail of a siren was heard. Someone was trying to help, trying to open the doors from the outside, or break the surprisingly strong glass. Around them, Anya was fussing in tears, clutching her stomach with her hands. Masha's white eye reflected her whimpering, which soon turned into a cry of pain. The fire finally reached the cabin. Maria looked at the bandage lying at her feet, picked it up, and, absently turning it over in her hands, dropped it into the nearest trash can. She looked once more at what was happening around her and smiled. The evil one had finally broken free.